The Baikal-Amur Mainline, or BAM, is one of the largest infrastructure projects in Soviet history. It stretches for more than 4,300 kilometers across Siberia and the Russian Far East, running parallel to the Trans-Siberian Railway, but much further north. The idea of this railway goes back to the late 19th century, but the real story of BAM belongs to the 20th century. The first serious construction began in the 1930s, and this part is important. Much of the early work was carried out by prisoners from the Gulag system. These were people sent to some of the harshest places in the country. They worked in conditions that are hard to imagine today, cutting through forest by hand, digging frozen ground, building the first sections of track in complete isolation, extreme cold, hunger, no proper shelter. There are no exact numbers, but historians generally agree the death toll was in the thousands. Then came World War II, and the project was put on hold. Construction resumed decades later, in 1974, and this is the part most people remember. BAM was declared a Komsomol, shock construction project, which basically meant one thing. The entire country was told, go build it. You'd hear it everywhere, on the radio, in newspapers, on posters. Go to BAM became a real slogan. Tens of thousands of young people headed there. Students, workers, engineers. In total, hundreds of thousands of people took part in the construction. For many, this wasn't just a job, it was something bigger. Some came for the adventure, some came for better pay, some came because they didn't have many options back home. But almost everyone arrived with the same feeling, that they were part of something huge. And this is where things get real. Because BAM wasn't a construction site in the usual sense. It was a place where almost nothing existed. People arrived and found themselves in the middle of the taiga forest, mud, rivers, and that's it. At first, everything had to be built from scratch. Tents, trailers, temporary barracks. In winter, temperatures dropped to -40, sometimes even -50 degrees Celsius. Metal would crack, machines would fail. Even breathing outside felt like a challenge. And summer wasn't any easier. Swamps, deep mud, and mosquitoes. Not just a few, but swarms so thick people covered their faces with nets. Workdays were long, 10 to 12 hours, sometimes more. Tracks were laid often with minimal equipment. Bridges had to be built, tunnels carved through mountains. One of the toughest sections was the Severo-Moisky Range. Here, they were building a tunnel over 15 kilometers long. It took decades to complete. Collapses, accidents, loss of life. All of it happening far from any major infrastructure. Again, there are no exact numbers, but if you take into account the Gulag period and later construction, we're talking about thousands of lives. And still, the construction never stopped. Day after day, year after year, people pushed the railway forward through territory where nothing had existed before. And then something remarkable happened. Along the tracks, new cities began to appear. Not just small settlements, actual cities. Tinda, Severobaikalsk, Nirungri, built from the ground up. Apartment blocks, schools, hospitals, cultural centers. People didn't just work there. They started living there. Families formed. Children were born. It began to feel like something permanent. In 1984, a major milestone was reached, the moment when the eastern and western sections of BAM were finally connected. Formally, the railway was complete. It was a huge symbolic moment for the entire country. But in reality, construction continued for years. For example, the Severo-Moisky Tunnel was only fully completed in 2003. The economic expectations were massive. BAM was supposed to open access to natural resources, coal, minerals, timber, and serve as a backup route to the Trans-Siberian Railway. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, everything changed. Funding dropped, industries shut down, people started leaving, and this is where the story takes a quieter turn. The towns were still there, but fewer and fewer people remained. Some settlements were nearly abandoned. Buildings stood but empty, broken windows, silent streets. Places that were once built for the future suddenly felt like they no longer had one. And that might be the most difficult part of this story. Because BAM is not just about a railway, it's about people. People who went into the wilderness, lived in extreme conditions, worked at their limits, and believed they were building the future. And part of that future did come true, but part of it was left behind. Today, BAM is being developed again. It's being modernized, expanded. Its capacity is increasing. It remains a major transport corridor. But its history is not just about success, it's about the cost. The cost people pay when they try to build something truly massive.